We're often told that the two subjects we must always avoid at dinner parties are politics and religion. Quite right. Let's talk about the weather instead. Or maybe television or sport. The latest soap operas, celebrities' relationships. But I can't stop myself trying to engage in these forbidden issues, politics and religion in their broadest sense. In particular, if you live in the West, people specifically try and avoid engaging in talk about Islam. I think this is a shame. Now, I've never had a religious belief, not since I can remember. I can recall being forced to go to Sunday school by a religious grandmother and being horrified by the story of Noah and his associated genocide. I remember thinking, he did what? Yeah, well, it never took. Despite the best efforts of my religious grandmother and the teachers at our supposed non-religious school, it never took. But that doesn't mean that religion doesn't interest me as an outsider. I find it puzzling that otherwise intelligent people can believe such fantastical tales. So I try and find out what people think and why. But I've yet to find what I think is a reasonable justification for religious belief. But that doesn't stop me asking questions. One such person I engaged with was a young Muslim woman at a workplace, and I didn't even initiate the conversation. We were chatting in the kitchen one lunchtime, and the subject came up that I was an atheist. She was a bit taken aback, but then asked me in an incredulous tone, "You don't believe in evolution, do you?" I was a little puzzled by this, partly because God beliefs, or lack of, have nothing to do with evolution, but also because her tone indicated that the very idea of accepting one of the most well-established theories in science was ridiculous. So I responded, "Yes, I accept it as the best possible explanation for the diversity of species." And then she said something fantastic. "Oh, is that what it means?" So, essentially, she had rejected a concept despite not knowing what that concept actually was. Then why was she rejecting it? Shouldn't you at least understand something you're going to reject? That was my first insight. She then started talking about Islamic science and subsequently emailed me some videos by a gentleman by the name of Harun Yahya, a Turkish creationist. She said, "Anyway, there's a lot of science on this website, ... Science from an Islamic perspective. Let's pray it doesn't bore you. Thanks for the interesting chat at work today." Religion isn't science. The two are not compatible. And whenever you prepare the name of religion to the word science, you can generally be sure that the followers are just trying to imply that the rigour that is used in science also applies to their religion. It doesn't. This linguistic trick is not limited to Islam. Other religious groups do the same, the most obvious example being Christian Scientists. So that's how I first encountered Harun Yahya. I watched a few of his videos, nothing new there. Standard creation is fair, evolution is collapsing, that'll be news to biologists, the collapse of atheism, etc. So, the usual rubbish. We have a to and fro for a while via email. I point out a few examples demonstrating evolution. Her response is fairly standard for a creationist. Those are questions for a biologist, doctor, scientist. But people are discovering the human body every day, doctors and experts. It's a bit arrogant to assume the design of the body is inefficient just because not all the reasons it is the way it is are clear to you, clear to the human being. Discoveries being made about science every day, and even the human body has not been mastered, or has it? It's not about liking or disliking evolution. It needs to make sense, and it needs to be clear. It needs to satisfy. This environment that filters what is useful or what is not comes from what? Does the environment think? Does it have a brain? What is the environment there? Where did it come from? Has it evolved from a rock? Does it choose to be one kind and another kind depending where it is on the globe, universe, cosmos, existence? Our bodies are functioning all day. When you are asleep, your body is working for you. Don't you think that is a miracle? The fact you have an eye is not amazing? Okay, create a better one when we use that one. I am sure if that was the case, we'd all be buying better designed eyes off the shelf. Truth, a very interesting word. Quite the gish gallop. Where to begin? Yes, new knowledge is acquired every day, but the things we discussed are not in dispute among scientists. Biology is messy. If you want to claim that these messy designs have some secret purpose, than it is for you to demonstrate it. As it is, the designs are stupid. No human engineer would design things this way. I don't think anything could be clearer than evolution. For anyone who spends a small amount of time understanding it, bear in mind that this is a woman who had decided not to believe it, never having examined it. Well, yes, it's called natural selection. Not all individuals have the same number of offspring. Survival rates are differential, depending on how the life form interacts with the environment, and that is largely down to inherited traits. Well, no, it doesn't have a brain. That's the point. It doesn't need a brain. What? Not really related to evolution. This often happens in conversations with creationists. They degrade into odd, meaningless questions unrelated to biological evolution. Moving on. Well, no, unless you meant metaphorically. If you can demonstrate that any given system can arise naturally, why would you invoke the supernatural? Do you do that anywhere else in your life? Actually, people do offer supernatural explanations for natural events. People often look at biological systems as they are today, but a complex system that is actually just lots of simpler systems combined. 3.5 billion years is a long time. The fact that a system is autonomous is neither here nor there. Most systems are autonomous. Amazing in what sense? Many animals have eyes. Is it amazing that they have eyes, or just amazing that humans have eyes? The evolution of eyesight is fascinating, and the advantage that a creature gains from having it is immense. Which of our other senses allow us to detect objects trillions of miles away? It seems that eyesight has evolved independently more than once, but the human eye is nothing special, in the sense that all vertebrates seem to share this common pattern. Not that all vertebrate eyesight is identical in all regards. She continues, being unbiased is difficult, but starting with evolution creates a bias too. You can't see the bigger picture. Science is one fact of life, huge fact, but the unseen is also a fact. How we feel, our soul, death, which is real. People pop their clogs every day. Often science conflicts with all religions, I agree. But science does not conflict with Islam, as the Quran is also a book explaining science, facts about the physical world we live in, stuff you see and touch, measure and observe. Evolution is still very vague and like a blur to me. Being unbiased is difficult, but starting with evolution creates a bias too, she's repeating herself. You can't see the bigger picture. Well, sometimes people make pictures bigger than they need be. Evolution, natural selection is a single claim about the nature of reality. She seems to think it's a grand theory of everything. It isn't. Yes, science is important, very important, but the unseen is also a fact. By unseen, does she mean literally, or does she mean undetected? Because if it's the latter, then how can she say it's a fact? As for feelings, well, they are irrelevant for the purpose of determining what is true. As for the soul, well, she can't demonstrate such a thing exists, so it's academic. Yes, death is real, so what? Now this really interests me. She sees the Quran as being as much a science manual as a religious text. This is nonsense, of course, but it appears to be a common claim amongst Muslims. The Quran is alleged to have been written, by tradition, between 610 and 632 CE. Whatever knowledge is contained within could only have reflected what people knew or believed at that time. Well, you could read some books on the subject, enlighten yourself, but much better to make no attempt and just assume it's wrong. That first part is spot on. Knowing what is true is deeply difficult. The latter part, not so much. You don't start with evolution, you start with evidence, which is what Darwin and Wallace did. No such evidence exists for religious claims, a great deal for evolution. In another email, well, I don't believe animals choose what genes they need to survive, and which genes are passed on and which aren't to the next generation. That kind of intelligent design is not down to chance, because it is flawless. Not sure whether that's a statement or a question. They have what they need to survive. It is a mercy. I think animals are constantly designed and constantly being adapted to survive in the environment that they've been put in. E.g., camels can survive on little water because they are desert animals, etc. I am not a scientist, no surprise there, but find how science shapes people is interesting. If evolution was a valid theory for the human's existence, the key to what the purpose of life is, it wouldn't confuse people, and it would satisfy people, and often it doesn't. Many people, scientists and otherwise, turn to Islam every day. Evolution doesn't have all the answers. It is a theory brought about by someone who is searching for the truth and has been turned into a belief system in its very own right. How does evolution account for things like the Japan earthquake, volcanic eruptions, political unrest, everyday news we hear all around us, poverty, disease, people, real things? Why do many scientists believe in Islam? They don't feel that like their science worldview need to be compromised. And these are Western scientists, not Arab scientists in the desert who wear long dresses and a turban on their heads. Evolution for me seems to be too niche to be valid, like a belief in a straitjacket. Well, I don't believe animals choose what genes they need to survive. Jesus H. Christ. No animal chooses. They just have genes. Variation. The environment does the rest. Not chance, natural selection. And as I've said previously, it is not flawless. It is full of flaws, but it's good enough. Any evidence that they are constantly designed and constantly being adapted? By what? Can you demonstrate that? No. Wow, she just doesn't get it. It's nothing to do with purpose. It's a single explanation for a single phenomenon. This is very frustrating. How satisfying it feels is irrelevant. Facts don't care about your feelings. If by that you mean converts, well, not many people are Muslims as a consequence of conversion. They are almost exclusively born into the religion. What can Islam offer scientists? Is this a reiteration of the claim that the Quran contains scientific truths? On another occasion, she asked me, then how is it that the Quran tells us that there are two kinds of water in the sea? I looked at her puzzled. There aren't two kinds of water in the sea. That's nonsense. All water contains dissolved salts of varying concentrations. Even bottled mineral water contains dissolved salt, and salinity and temperature will vary at depth in the sea and around the world, but not kinds of water. Apparently, the real Quranic fact, she got this one wrong, is that fresh water and salt water don't mix. Another fallacious claim. There is nothing magical about fresh water versus salt water, it's just water. All the answers? She just doesn't listen. It's a single explanation for a single phenomenon. And no, it's not a belief system. It's a testable scientific theory supported by vast amounts of evidence from multiple disciplines. Well, now we've gone completely off the rails. Why would evolution account for earthquakes and volcanoes? We have a perfectly good theory that does, though, and it's called the theory of plate tectonics. Political unrest? Politics. Poverty? Economics. Disease? No, there evolution can and does provide explanations for the existence of diseases. Scurvy, for example. But I don't suppose she's even considered it. So this was an enlightening conversation. Frustrating, but enlightening. Clearly, I'm dealing with a creationist. Everything she says is fairly standard creationist fare. But I find her unwillingness to listen galling. She refuses or seems incapable of seeing that Darwin Wallace's theory has limited scope. It has nothing to do with purpose, cosmology, feelings. economics, etc. But despite my explaining this to her multiple times, she won't let go of this misapprehension. I'm not sure if she's been deliberately obtuse or is just genuinely dense. She conflates a theory with a belief system. It isn't. It is testable and it is falsifiable, and it is constantly tested, unlike her beliefs. She believes that the Quran is a source not just of morals or claims about the afterlife, but also about scientific truth. This is demonstrably false. So the whole interaction leaves me wondering, are her beliefs widespread, common, or rare amongst Muslims? Obviously, Islam is not monolithic, and people have individual beliefs. But I was left wondering, how many Muslims are creationists?